Hello, 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 and welcome to our webinar. This very interesting webinar that is co-promoted by AACE Brazil section and the the Dispute Resolution Board Foundation. And we have two very active practitioners of dispute boards tonight with me. I am Aldo Matos. I'm the currently president of AACE Brazil section, and I will introduce my colleagues in a second. But before they join, I can see that they are already here. I would like you to write in the check box where you are, what your country is, what your city is. I am here in Salvador de Bahia, in Brazil, and let's see people joining now. 7 p.m. here in Brazil. It's 5 p.m. Eastern time in United States and other countries. And I will, let's see here. Oh, Anne Russo. I would like to introduce the Anne Russo to all the attendees. She is the person who manages the Dispute Board Foundation. And I think we can start our debate, we can start our webinar, we can start our presentation by introducing our two colleagues who will be together with me in today's section. The title of today's section, it's a very long title, I had to read it. Practical Challenges and Opportunities in the Use of Dispute Boards in Construction Projects. I am a big fan of dispute boards, but before we go to the detail, I would like to welcome Marcela Radovic and Romano Alioni. Each one of them is in a different country. I will let them introduce themselves and tell us where they are, what they do, and what their connection to dispute board is. And if you are new to this topic, if you haven't been introduced to dispute board, don't worry, because this will be a step-by-step conversation about dispute boards. We will explain what a DB is, we will explain the challenges, we will explain the role of owners and contractors in a DB, and you that are here in Latin America. I see a colleague joining here from Botswana. Well, in Latin America, in Africa, well, everybody will have a better perception of the applicability of dispute boards in construction projects. Okay, so my dear Marcela Radovic, where are you? Welcome, and please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you very much, Aldo. Hi, Romano. It's a pleasure to be with you guys tonight. I'm in Chile, and my relationship with dispute board started a long time ago, like 12 years ago, when I did my dissertation in my master's degree in the LSE. I was in shock. I already belonged to the construction industry, and I was overwhelmed with all the problems that the construction industry was going through already, like with very conflicting and adversarial. And I found dispute boards as a theoretical, mechanism. And then when I came back to Chile, I just couldn't stop sharing and spreading the news. And I've been working hard with the DRBF to promote dispute boards all along this, Latin America. And thanks God, I'm very lucky. I think I've been in like 8 projects with dispute boards as a member and sometimes as a chair. And it's like even better than just reading about them. So I'm very excited to be here. Romano is one of my, I was always inspired by you, Romano. like incredible experience. So I cannot wait to hear your stories and all your, all your knowledge. And thank you, Aldo. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yes. Ciao, Romano. Where are you tonight?
Well, I'm in close to me in Italy, and here is 11 p.m. And I'm glad that you have young people. Marcela, you need experience, but try to take your time, because I think I started, my first dispute board was in 1980, 81.
Wow, 81,
Even
almost 40 years ago.
Don't say the same, please. Don't point out. I know that, but I prefer to forget a bit. Now, I think, and I hope that all of us remember Al Matthews, who has been one of the founder or the number one creator of the dispute board. And the story I was going to tell you that 1970, I was relatively young. I was a young engineer moving to Pakistan, and the first job I had to do was to put together a PERT program, critical path and so on, because the engineer was from New York, New York, and was a requirement of the contract. And I was in a joint venture with 18 companies, and basically nobody had done anything like that. So we had to call an advisor. And you know how came, but we got a company called Al Matthews Corporation from Arizona. And Al Matthews sent his consultant, and we put together 1 ton of paperwork, which nobody looked at, but at least we comply with the contract, which is one thing you should do when you sign a contract, you have to comply with it. And I was the only one using it as a little bit of the documentation we prepared. But later on, this was 1980, 1981, I was the site agent, I don't know how you call it, project manager on site of a Elkhorn arch dam, more than 200-meter arch dam in Honduras. And we ran into an hell of a problem with the supervision, the supervising engineer following the contract. The poor guy had no experience, or he had experience in building cottages in Canada. It's not good enough. So he would not decide anything. And Al Matthews luckily was on the World Bank board, because this project was financed by World Bank and Bank Interamericano de Desarrollo and so on. And he recommended to the client, NA, to the employer, to form a dispute board. And well, this was proposed to us, and myself and my boss at the time, we decided, yes, why not? And this was the first dispute board formed. And the chair was a guy called Carlos Ospina, late. Almost everybody's late or left us long time ago. But anyway, so Carlos Ospina and one American and one Italian engineer, they joined, and they helped us in getting through. And they've done what we need all the time, to support the people, make them feel in reasonable shape, and help them in carrying through. And so, but the first thing Carlos Ospina said, tonight, go and work and fix whatever you can, and the silly thing should be eliminated, and you come back tomorrow morning. And this is what we have done. And this started really the dispute board without any real rules. The rules were the one of Al Matthews. Do whatever is needed in order to prevent and resolve problems and prevent them. And but then later on, I went back to the head office, and I was in charge of a project called AACE Dam in Lesotho, in the middle of South Africa, in the kingdom of Lesotho. And in the tender letter I added, we proposed to have a dispute. And what happened? the consultant to the employer, and the employer decide, yes, why not? And so we say, how do we choose the members? There was no rules at that time. And somebody suggested, I don't know who has been, say, why we don't write down 5 names? If there are 3 in common, this is a board. And you can say that we presented 5 names. Of course, one name was Al Matthews. So Al Matthews being the chair of the board. And this was almost 90. And then, to shorten it a bit, in 96, when Al Matthews and other 3 formed the foundation, I joined as a charter member, together with another man who I resent is not alive anymore, who is, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Romano,
Okay.
I would like to take advantage on what you were saying, that you have been involved to dozens of dispute boards, and Marcela in like 8 or 9. But can you believe that here in Brazil, I am only aware of 9 or 10 dispute boards in the whole country in history. It's not 9 or 10 right now. It's total in Brazil. So this instrument, this tool is very new to our culture. And so I would like to ask Marcela. Marcela, can you explain very quickly, like in an elevator pitch, can you explain what a dispute board is? How many people compose a dispute board? Who choose them, and what the purpose of the dispute board is?
Well, thank you for the question, because it's great to speak about the essence of dispute boards. Well, a dispute board is in essence a panel. It's normally composed by 3 people, but it's not just normal people. They are all normally experts in construction, have a lot of experience in projects. Also, they are experts or have important experience in dispute management, I would say, not even dispute resolution, also management disputes from the very beginning. And also, these experts are appointed by the parties. So these people they kind of like work with the confidence, with the trust of the parties that they give them. I trust you because of your experience, because of your personality, and I want you to go with us through the whole project. The best dispute board is the one which starts at the very beginning of the project. And well, we will go probably deeply, but basically they have 2 main objectives of goals. First one, and I think the most important, is to avoid disputes. Like they do everything they can do, in order to invite the parties to share openly, to anticipate where a little problem is going to become a huge problem later on. And also they act as a filter, because they kind of filter those problems in order them not to become a dispute. And when any of these problems become a dispute, because that can happen, they really resolve them in an incredible short period of time. It depends on the rules, but we're not talking more about 3 months. I mean, we're talking about 90 days.
So the dispute board can be very useful in preventing disputes and arbitrations and lawsuits and all this kind of litigation that's very common in construction projects, right?
And just let me tell you this. Why I was shocked when I found them is because I discovered that this mechanism was invented by the industry. It's not something created by the state or lawyers or anything centralized. It was the engineering community who said, construction industry needs something for us to really, really understand construction and to go through the project with us. So I think it's wonderful. It's a self-regulation example.
Yes, I would like to ask, to make a question to Romano. Here in Brazil, I was a member of one of the DBs here. It was a road work, okay, in a urban area. And what I find that is the most useful aspect of the dispute board is that it is contemporaneous to the construction activities. The DB is on board while the project is being executed. Because when we go to an arbitration, for example, it's 2 years later, 3 years later, and we hear one story being told by one party and another different story told by the other party. Do you agree, Romano, that the presence of the DB members during the execution of the work is one of the big advantages of a dispute board?
Aldo, no doubt. Just consider that the most important thing is the acceptance of the parties. The next thing is that if you start at the beginning, as you suggest, you can really build trust, and you can give some experience you may have. Normally, you should have sufficient experience very often to see the problem before they start.
Yeah.
And you should build up the trust of the people. This is the most important thing. That's why it is very, very important to have the proper people on board. We can do a lot of good things, but is enough a bad good board, and this will create a problem to a lot of people. And so you need really people who understand the concept. And I tell you, the system has been developed in such a way that whether you have a dispute board giving a recommendation like the US, or giving decision like you have AACE rules or FIDIC rules, or a number of rules give the power to decide. But and you can start building up the trust, asking a lot of questions, and making sure that the problem are brought over the table. In the old good time, the old bad time sometimes, we had a number of contractors build up all together a package of big claims, and then the hope that we settle around the table and we get 50%, and that's it. This should not be the case, it should not work. So the idea is that you have to take the cases when they come as soon as possible, and the fact that you got the FIDI conditional contract and other conditional contract calling for the notice to be given within 28 days, or sometimes 7 days. If you go in the oil industry, they give 7 days to advise if there is a problem, simply because every day is so important that that you have a little time and you have to follow through one by one. So the other thing which developed we had, that we started with the idea of Al Matthews and the other founder was a standing board. However, sometime, and mainly to save money, people thought that, well, why we don't call them when we have a thing? Which of course defeats the purpose or the aim to prevent and avoid dispute. And that, when it happens, and as happened, a number of ad hoc dispute board, then like in arbitration, you don't see anybody who has done the work. You have to look at the paper, and this is real. The idea is that you see what is going on. You go to site every 3 months, 4 months, and if there is a special, like in a big dam, you have a diversion, then you go there to see what is happening at that time, and so on and so forth. And this will give the possibility to the dispute board also to pass on some technical knowledge. I've been in Italy. We now have the possibility to have a kind of a dispute board giving recommendation. And I've been in one 10 years ago on the underground bus of the high-speed train under a big town. And there we really, as a chief, it was called consultative committee or something like that. And there we were really almost advising the designer. And you can do that without breaking any rules, simply asking questions, making sure that the people fully, both parties, the employer and the contractor, and sometimes even the engineer, fully understand the problem, sees the problem coming. And so you have to learn. If you are, I moved to be a dispute board member or dispute board chair from being the general manager. And I was used to tell to the people what to do and go ahead and do and maybe choose alternative. When you are on the dispute board, you should be sure that you fully understand what is going on with your experience and asking questions and make sure that
Yes.
other party do. Look, I'm
Roman.
sorry, go ahead.
Yes, is just to make it more interactive here. I would like to ask Marcela. There are basically two types of dispute boards. There's the dispute adjudication board and the dispute review board. One issues a binding decision, the other one is a recommendation. Can you explain, Marcela, the difference between these two types of dispute boards?
Yeah, of course. Well, you kind of mentioned it, but we can go a little bit deeper. The ICC rules, for example, describe very clear and regulates very clearly these two kinds of dispute board, and it's the perspective is whether the determination that the dispute board's issue is binding or not, and it has. Because this is a session about practical challenges, I think it's very important to kind of like become aware of what does that mean. You know, it means basically that if you're in a dispute review board, the recommendation that the board is going to issue, it's going to be a recommendation. I mean, you can comply with it or not. And if you don't want to comply with it, you can issue a notification of, you know, I'm not,
Dissatisfaction.
I don't agree. Okay. But if you're working on a dispute adjudication board, then you will have to comply with that decision as soon as you receive it. And you just issue the notification of, you know, disagreement just for you to keep your right to go into arbitration and kind of like, you know, submit that dispute to an arbitrator. But it's completely different. And let me just tell you that both of them work. It depends on the culture. For example, in the US, I know the Florida state, I mean, the Department of DOT, they work mostly with review boards. But in Europe, they normally mostly use DIB, adjudication board. And I would say that in Latin America, because I'm here for Region 4, the new region of the DRBF, we might prefer adjudication board because we tend to be a little bit, you know, not really to comply with rules. So it's good that this is
yes, here in Brazil,
yes.
Sorry, no, it's just to interact with you. Here in Brazil, the dispute boards are all adjudication boards. So it means that what the dispute board decides, it has to be followed. It has to be, it's mandatory for the parties. But then, sorry, Marcela, I interrupted you.
No, just to say that this is a express norm, you know, like rule. It says a decision is binding from the moment when they receive it, from the moment. So you don't have, even if you not whatever, you can do whatever you want, but you need to comply with it. And that is very important to bear in mind when we choose this type or this other type.
Right. Romano, I have a question for you. Here in Brazil, we usually make dispute boards with 2 engineers and a lawyer, an attorney, okay? 2 engineers, and usually this lawyer is the chair of the dispute board. In your experience, based on your experience, what is your recommendation? Is this a good match, 2 engineers and 1 lawyer? Or we should go with 3 lawyers or 3 engineers, or what's your opinion?
And all, the idea of Al Matthews and the other was really to have engineer handling it. And there is always a discussion about having lawyer or not having lawyer. The point is, I'm afraid that there is a mistake in understanding it. The point is that you need certain lawyer and certain engineer. Not everybody is good enough. So, as Marcela said, you really need a construction lawyer who understands and is there to solve the problem. Sometimes we have a lot of problems with people. You go in with one problem, you get out with 3 problems. And this is where you have to be careful with a lawyer. We need people, and I'm talking people, I'm talking the employer, the contractor, the engineer, the member of the board, with a proper approach to the project. And this is, in this, as Marcela said, it's not really a matter of being an engineer or a lawyer. It's to having the proper approach and convince people that it's best for everybody to act together for the success of the project. So in my experience, I had good cases with lawyer. I had a relatively bad case with a Chilean lawyer, and I had a terrible case with an English lawyer. But what you should get, if you are the employer, if you are the contractor, see to have together the real professional and a team. That's why the method is not bad. The idea to have each party proposing one member with approval for the other party, with a proper qualification, and then the two propose a chairperson. Now you have to use chairperson. Don't say chairman or chair lady because they don't like it. Chairperson is a new word particularly in the World Bank and so forth. And the time when I had a terrible time with a very good person, Chilean lawyer, was when we were unable to put together the team, and so they had to go to ICC to get somebody appointed. And they appointed a nice person, but he was not really familiar with the system. And unfortunately, and this probably was also my mistake, we were fighting. The two engineers had completely different idea how to handle it. Because I've been working with a contractor most of the time, I know the type of problem. And the other guy was really a top engineer consultant. So again, one big thing which will come at the end anyway, you have to choose properly the people. Now let me go back, if you permit me, a moment to the matter of decision or recommendation. Now, I've been working in both cases, and as Marcela said, our friendly engineer or semi-engineer from Switzerland proposed to have a CDB, a combined dispute board, where the party may agree to request a recommendation, to request a decision, and the board will comply. And sometime, and this happened rather normally, you have the party do not agree. And so either you end up on the recommendation because it's a lighter thing, or the board, in special cases, may decide to have a decision, which has to be implemented. Now, the other thing you have to consider, as Marcela again said, is a culture. So in Africa, they and the World Bank have chosen to use the FIDI conditional contract and therefore have a decision, which will be much easier for a public servant to bring to his ministry or the government and say, these people have decided that the decision is properly presented and properly motivated, and so that normally the thing gets through, and the fact that you decide is definitely a good help.
Okay.
Let's not forget, that particularly the latest FIDI conditional contract call for dispute avoidance and foresee, like had been done before, also the possibility, like in other cases, for the board to give opinion, provide the two parties agree to ask an opinion on a specific item. Of course, it's not a fully developed claim, it's something specific. How do you interpret this clause? How this bill of quantity, what does include, what does not include, and review that. This also is not used a lot, but is very helpful. And
Yes.
frankly, if you handle, if a good dispute board will be, I've done that all the time. Since I started in 2000, I've seen being done a lot of time, but now is also formalized. And this is we have to help people fully understand the possibility you have and the opportunity you have to solve problem by utilizing properly the dispute board after you have nominated a proper dispute board. I insist on that because
Okay,
that is
Romano. I would like to say that we have attendees here from Brazil, Peru, Chile, United States, Romania, Italy, Botswana, where else? Please write in the chat box where you are, what your country is, so that we can have a better picture, we can see the big picture here of the attendees. And Marcela, I have a question for you. And I need an advice from you. Oh, also Bolivia here. Why is it so difficult to convince owners to adopt dispute boards? In my experience, it is easier to convince contractors than owners. Why do you think the owners are kind of reluctant? Is because contractors are more innovative, because the contractors suffer more to get the claims approved, or because they are more familiar with dispute boards? What is your personal opinion about that?
Well, I have to tell you that I've been struggling with that here in Chile because I'm the country rep of the DRBF. So my mission is to convince owners precisely to get involved in this experience. And I think there are many reasons. I think there are a lot of misconceptions, a lot of fears. And if you think about it, in general, you know, it has been demonstrated that there is like an innovation law. And it demonstrates that if you look at the society in general, you will always find early adopters. And then you will find like the mass of the people, and then the really conservative ones, you know. So the best thing to do when you want to innovate is to go to the early adopters, because then the mass is going to follow them because they are doing that. So I think owners sometimes just are reluctant because they don't understand it fully. They think it's going to be expensive, but later on I'm going to tell you in percentage that it's not. It's absolutely cheap compared with the costs of disputes. But also, let me tell you, I think, you know, the relationship between an owner and a contractor, it's normally like this. You know, there are some contractors that are very big and strong and powerful, but normally they kind of sit in a smaller chair. Yeah, asymmetric completely. And because of that, most of the owners think and believe that why I'm going to hire these three people to kind of share my power and my control, that I have the whole control of the project, with three guys telling me what to do. But when they get into the experience, I am leading a pilot program in Chile, and that I convinced two big owners, big ones, like they are international, mining and energy. And once they go through the experience, they tell me, this is amazing, because I was so overwhelmed with claims that I didn't have enough people to study them, to reject them, or whatever. So I was paying things without knowing if that was okay to be paid. And you know, we have compliance rules now. It's not about just negotiating commercially. So they kind of realize that at the end, contractors become a little bit more transparent, and they have a better disposition to open up, to share information, and they have to be serious when they want to submit a claim. And it's like, this was amazing. Like, I really appreciate, and I'm gonna,
Yes.
and all of them, they're gonna continue using dispute boards. Okay, there
And-
are better owners than
And
others.
Marcela, I would like to add a
Sorry,
little
Aldo, if
information.
I
Is that
could-
here, Romano? Just 1 second. Is that
Okay.
in my perception, the owners benefit from the dispute board in that the dispute board gives them more comfort to decide. I think it's comfortable.
Mostly
It
public.
increases the empowerment of what the owner
What they are
decides.
paying.
And Romano, do you think that we can say that a dispute board is like an insurance for the project?
Certainly we can, but before that, let me add something which was pointed out by David also. We cannot forget the importance of the engineer, the designer, the supervision consultant. In Lesotho, we, as I said, for discussing them, and then for the other project at that time, we proposed to have the dispute board. The employer was convinced, the technical advisor to the employer was convinced, the engineer was against it because they saw it as taking away their power.
Yes.
And I must confess that when I'm reading condition of contract and I see the power of the engineer, I understand they can be frustrated. But still, it took a long time, and Anne would know Andy Griffith, and somebody will know Andy Griffith. He was number 2 of the engineers, and originally he was also a bit against it. But then, having seen Al Matthews and the colleague working, it really found out what Marcelo said, that there is a big help, and it should be understood. The employer might be afraid that there is another misconception. Sometimes people think that if you present a claim, and then the result should be 50-50. Unfortunately, this is not true. What is certainly correct is that the employer and the engineer has their share of a lot of decision making by preparing the contract document, the tender documents. Then at the end, it is quite clear that most of the time is a contractor winning if he's applying the contract. So it is, this also should be understood. People say, oh, but the contractor is winning most of the time. It's natural because the engineer and the employer, they had to properly work in the original document, in the site investigation, in the preparation of the tender drawing and all the information there. This is where they can improve a lot by really giving a contract which calls for less claim or for less problems. So again, don't forget the engineers, and I don't see them. I see them interested, but not many of them. And the employer will decide together with this engineer which type of conditional contract we'll have. So let me only say another thing. Luckily, the World Bank, because of Al Matthews, and after LCOM project, Al Matthews went to the World Bank and say, as a consultant proposed or requested by the World Bank, he convinced the World Bank that this was a proper method to handle. And so now the World Bank is really imposing that within 28 days or within 42 days, you have a dispute board on board. And I've seen it being taken early. And recently, I've just been appointed in Uganda on a number of 3 of them. And I can see the way they prepare the tender document and they discuss the tender with the possible contractor before signing the contract. They really have done whatever they can in this case, particularly in order to resolve a lot of question marks. And I tell you, in Uganda, I've been now probably is my number 10 dispute board, and they've learned a lot. And they've seen how it works, and they value, of course, the fact that very often, with the help of the dispute board, they can finish the work on time, which is most important, as we all know, and within budget very often. So the way to convince the owner is to help them starting once and make sure that they got the proper support from the proper dispute board, and then the next time they will not even think about it.
Yes, yes. This is a good lesson that we learned from DBs, is that once you get familiar with the DB, once you work on a DB or with the DB, you will always consider a DB, because it's very practical, it's agile, it goes to the job site, the DB members know the parties, know the project, receive the reports, they know what's going on, they know the design, they know the contract. And let me ask Marcela, an urban myth: are DBs expensive?
Well, I came prepared, Aldo, because this is the question everybody asks me every time I'm promoting these people.
Ah, yes.
Okay, how much is this beauty? You know, it's like, I don't believe it's going to be, I think it's going to be very expensive. And if you go to the dispute board manual, the DRBF manual about dispute board, which is already in the website, you will find that they have, like, based on the statistics they've been acquiring all these years, they say that the carrying cost of a DB relative to a budget of the project are small, usually in the range of 0.05% to 0.15% of the project cost.
0.05 to 0.15%
of the project cost, the whole project cost. And that cost, it's divided in the monthly fee when we do talk about a standing board, like the kind of board that follow up from the beginning, and then on the daily fee, which is basically the fee that the DB members spend, you know, doing very specific activities, going to the site or making a decision, and also the expenses, you know, the tickets and the, you know, the hotel and everything like that. But if you think about 0.0% like of a project cost, that's nothing. That's peanuts compared with the cost of a dispute and the relationship that can be, you know, really, really messed up out of having too many conflicts. So I would say it's cheap.
Aldo, if I may add something here. As you know, the dispute board can be one person, 5 person, depending. Well, I've seen 5 person only on a very, very big project. And so let's say 1 or 3. Now, I tell you that as somebody who's been dealing with that, I definitely prefer to have 3 members, because really, I'm talking as a board member, it's very good to exchange view and to see how you can help and so forth. Again, with all the proper approach to the project. However, now, for instance, in Uganda, because they know me since a number of years, they appoint me alone, which of course will cut the cost substantially. But then the poor dispute board member is left alone, and okay, I mean, we are talking about 80-kilometer pipeline, water treatment plant, or a wonderful project because you give water to the people. This is a case where when I go to Uganda, they mention that I'm doing this type of work, I'm really greeted by everybody, and they really thanks, because really water, I'm sorry, but I'm living in a place where I open the tap and there come water. You too, most of you, but there are a lot of places where the people are still going far away to get the water. So it's a big thing, and a relatively small project, and give a lot of benefit to the people. And we are talking of a country. Sorry if I'm talking of Uganda, but really, it's a special case. They got a couple of million of refugees from South Sudan. They got the war close by Congo, at the border with Congo. So it's not an easy country. And they struggle, this national water with a Ministry of Work entity providing water and sewage. Sorry, the other thing is sewage. And now there is a lot of emphasis on the environment, which is important, and about they had some problem with sexual harassment and so forth. So now the World Bank is putting a lot of effort in that, and treatment of people. There's not the time for a slave is finished, thanks God, and so there is a lot to look into that. So you ask the parties and to the dispute board to understand the culture and to really help in having limit the problem with the local population. As Marcella said, we all are sometimes upset, or very often upset, if something is changed from our routine. And when you do a project, you have to suffer. Now in Kampala, we, or the contractor, will have to build the system, the reticulation, into what they call informal settlement. That means the kind of favelas, Brazilian style, and you have to put water and sewage. And it's going to bother a lot of people. So you need a lot about social and culture and be able to work with the people. And now I'm a bit scared because we have a Chinese contractor, and sometimes good, sometimes not. Let's see what is happening. And I'm going to help on that score. Even if it's not really strictly, it's not going to be a dispute. I don't wish to become a dispute. I would like them to understand that it is important and look into the document. I've just read the bid document. I believe that they reasonably understand, but I'm going to force them when I'm going there on Sunday. So there is a lot which the dispute board can do, and hopefully we will increase the use of dispute board all over.
Right. I was just doing the calculation here of how much the dispute board represented the project I was involved as a DB member, and it was 0.018%. So it means it's immaterial. And I have we are coming close to the end. I would like to say that another country showed up here, which is France. So we have now attendees from Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, Chile, United States, Romania, Italy, France, and Botswana. So it's a big success in terms of being a widespread. And I would like to say again that this webinar is co-promoted by AACE Brazil section and the Dispute Resolution Board Foundation, whose web link, somebody asked it here in the chat box, is DRB, remember, Dispute Resolution Board.org. And AACE is AACEI International, AACEI.org. And it's not surprisingly, many members of AACE are also members of Dispute Resolution Board Foundation, because the knowledge is, how can I say, interconnected, right? To be a good DB member, you need to have a good knowledge of a contract, of construction management, schedule and pricing, and all that. And we have some minutes left. I would like to ask the audience to send questions here. Oh, another one from another attendee from the United States. So we are all over the world. And I have a question that was sent to me here in my cell phone, is about when there is an arbitration after the dispute board issued a resolution? Is it common? I know the answer, but is it common? This question is for Roman. Is it common that the arbitration goes against the decision of the dispute board, or more commonly, the arbitration decides in the same line of thinking of the dispute board?
The two things. If the thing goes to arbitration, the dispute board has failed, which is bad. Okay, but then what I understand, not directly, indirectly, is that where you have a court case and the court, particularly in the state, will accept the dispute board, generally will do that. And I have some experience of the terrible group of cases in Panama for the third set, where we're talking about $3 billion work, so he's out of shape. And the arbitration sometimes goes along with the dispute board, sometimes goes against it. And I tell you, the dispute board there has got top people, but this I will call it out of really of rules. I don't remember in the case I'm talking about that the only thing which happened, we went to arbitration in Lesotho for a small thing, and there the case was went to arbitration, and the arbitrator decided in favor of accepted what was proposed by what was decided by the dispute board. So, but frankly, the good result is when at the end of a decision, look into a decision, both parties are somewhat unhappy, they accept, because it's so important to finalize things in a reasonable manner. So again, Marcella will agree with me, what you need is really to do, when you present a decision, properly motivate it and explain so that the party fully understand. And frankly, whenever I can, I'm reading the minutes of the court of a site visit to make sure that I don't forget something. And when I do a decision, if possible, I will send it to the party to review and comment even. And it's not a generality, cannot be generality, because it depends on the situation as it is. You know, I had a dispute board, an expertise where I took two ladies from UK to write down verbatim, day by day. But this is really, it's more likely an arbitration. And you do that, you may have to do that when you have an ad hoc board or an expertise, which is really, you go there when there is a big claim. So if possible, we should people to go with a standing dispute board, and this will help in really avoiding dispute and resolving them in a good time. And please let's not forget, we have been a contractor for so many years, but one most important thing, which almost everybody understands, but not 100%, is the cash flow. For the contractor, it is very, very important to have a reasonable cash flow. So he certainly is quite prepared to have a decision which is not giving to him 100%. He will never expect to have 100%. But provided it is reasonably done, he will accept it. But this should, if we help the cash flow of the contractor, we help the project, which is a main aim for all the party work on the project.
That's right. And I would like to ask Anne to write in the chat box if there is any statistics of what percentage of the decisions are become arbitration, and if they have some kind of data of how many arbitrations have gone against the dispute board decision. I personally don't know anyone. Marcella, would you like to make some comments? And I would like you to make.
Yeah, there's an 85.
Here's it.
very quick.
Say. No, I just want you to answer that and to make your final considerations so that we can conclude this webinar.
Yeah. Basically, you know, the percentage that Anne is sharing with us are really surprising. I mean, it's like between 85 and 98% of the decisions do not go to arbitration. So as Romano said, the goal is not to go to an arbitration or to go to litigation. So this is a huge percentage. They just stay within the project, you know, and also it's important to notice that when you go to an arbitration, you're not challenging the decision of the board. You normally submitting a whole dispute. You're not like saying this dispute board did it wrong, or you know, it's just you keep your right to do it when you notify this disagreement, but it's going to be a dispute about different issues, not just that decision about the dispute board. So it's a different thing because it's jurisdictional, and dispute boards are not jurisdictional. So yeah, I just wanted to see if I can show you guys a very, very short slide. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Okay, let me see. Do you see? This is very basic, but I think it's very illustrative. This is a project without a dispute board. You know, we know this kind of situations. We've been there a million times. Basically, it says that the project starts, you sign the contracts, and then you have claims, then the contracts finish, then, you know, the works are over. Sometimes they are abandoned, you know. You go to litigation, and years later, you have a solution. And normally the relationship between the parties it's completely messed up. But this is a project with dispute board. And then you have the same starting point, but then you have all of these things: visit to the sites, regular meetings, opinion, you know, recommendations, hearings, a lot of activities that do basically avoid the appearance of a dispute. And when the work finish, you don't have to go years later to an arbitration to spend a lot of money, lawyers, arbitrators, and the expert witness. So everything keeps and stay inside of the project. And as you said, Romano, cash flow, that's the key. It's the blood of the project. And a good dispute board, it's going to be taking care of that, because without blood, the body of the project doesn't really survive. So I think it's like very, very clear, you know, they're very illustrative.
Aldo, if I may, I've seen that there was a question about training on dispute board. I think no doubt we can mention that the RBF has got training for dispute board prospective member. FIDIC and associated with FIDIC got not training, but they also do examination to get into the FIDIC list, which is one of the few lists existing. And then there are country lists. Sometime I've been, for instance, in France, being in the panel checking on the proposed adjudicator and so on. So I think, I don't remember the name of the asking for this question, but there is no doubt there are a lot of ways to do that. But the best thing is to write to DRBF, drbs.org, and get on the move, and you will have information and join training system.
And also another announcement, don't forget that Brazil and Costa Rica had changed their public, you know, procurement law. So they're going to need lots of experts, lot of dispute board members. So we kind of invite you guys to be part of the DRBF because we need you. I mean, basically, there's not enough. So it's an explosion, I think.
Marcela, I've been in Chile on the dispute board, and I would like to return there. It's nice, although I'm a bit on the old side. We need young blood.
All right. So I would like to thank the two panelists, Romano Alioni, who is in Italy, and Marcela Radovic, who is in Chile. and I'm here in Brazil. This webinar was co-promoted by AACE Brazil section and the Dispute Resolution Board Foundation. I would like to thank all the attendees. We had like 120 registrations for this webinar, which shows that dispute boards is a topic that is attracting a lot of attention and is gaining momentum. And I think that pretty soon everybody will know a project that has or had a DB. And well, thank you very much. And I really encourage you to go to AACE website or to and to the drb.org website for further information. Thank you very much. I would like to thank also our international director, Felipe Gutierrez, who organized this series of webinar with our dear Anne Russo at the Dispute Resolution Board Foundation. Thank you very much. And that being said,
Thank you.
have a good
Thank you, Aldo. Bye.
Thank you, Aldo.
Ciao.
Nice to see you,
We
Manu,
stay
and
in touch,
everybody.
Marcela
Great.
and Aldo.
Arrivederci,
Ciao.
Romano. Ciao.
Arrivederci.
Ciao,
Adiós, Marcela. Ciao a todos.
Adiós.
Boa noite. Buenas noches.